Hi, I feel called to share some thoughts with you this morning. In my time stepping with a little bit of distance from the many things that I give my attention to, one thing that's been very strong and present with me, both during this time, but also accentuated during this whole pandemic, is grief. At the beginning of the pandemic, I found myself crying every single morning in my meditation. Just grief moving through, connected to things, not connected to things. Now it's not the same on a daily basis, but it's still pretty regular. And I'm also grieving as I watch my community respond. There's places where we have leaned into each other and we are reaching out and supporting one another in really profound ways. And then there's other ways where the same old hooking into our silos and this is mine and this is not mine. And I'm just feeling so deeply all of the ways that I and folks in this society, that we distance ourselves from humanity. I'm feeling the urgency to tend to, students and what students are requiring right now. And at the same time, I feel the distancing of the humanity of who these children are, the humanity of who the teachers are, the humanity of what parents are going through. And this is, of course, not everyone. There are so many amazing, amazing souls contributing everything in their being to the greater good. And I'm grappling with this distancing of humanity. And as we're at 170,000 people have died from coronavirus, that we know of, most likely more, in just a few short months. And that while there's so many other conditions, racism being a huge one, the effects of oppression, a huge one, that are affecting humans and humanity in our communities, I am aware that this virus is attacking everyone. And I'm baffled at why it doesn't hook into more humanity, why there isn't a greater care to care for one another, to protect one another, to be invested in the safety and the well-being and the health of one another. While I was on my little distancing, I just kept feeling that this approaching 200,000 deaths and how soon that's going to come. And do we need to be doing a large public mourning, public funeral, public acknowledgement of these 200,000? And feeling how this distancing from humanity that we do in so many aspects, that is why oppression is able to take root so deeply in our culture, is because we are so distanced. So many of us are so distanced from humanity. I keep feeling also about how alone folks are right now, alone in the suffering, alone from health, suffering in hospitals, suffering from economics, suffering from the mental health stirring that this reality is creating. And so I've been reading Valarie Kaur's See No Stranger, about revolutionary love. She's one of the leaders who are guiding me. And I just feel called to read some to you as I ask you to join me in grieving, and join me in honoring where the disconnects from humanity are happening in ourselves, in our circles, in our communities, in our country. And join me in doing something different. How many have had to grieve alone in the wake of mass violence in the United States? I thought of the indigenous peoples of North America who, after enduring campaigns of coordinated slaughter, were sent to boarding schools to have their cultures and native tongues ripped out of them. The miracle is that they survived and continue to live in a nation that cannot see them, let alone grieve them. Because national recognition, truth, and reconciliation would mean admitting that there is blood on our hands. I thought of the Black people who were told that the systems of slavery and Jim Crow are sins of the past and have no bearing on the disparities in health and income and education and safety of Black people today, that the mass incarceration of Black bodies is their fault, and that the police who kill their sons and daughters are worthy of exoneration. America does not know how to grieve Black lives because doing so would mean accepting that there was never complete abolition. Slavery transmuted into segregation, which morphed into discriminatory laws, and now into policies that appear neutral on the face, but still disparately violate people of color. I thought of my own community, how generations of Asian, South Asian, Muslim, and Arab Americans, as well as Latinx people, are still seen as perpetual foreigners and therefore easily criminalized. They have been incarcerated in camps, banned, detained, deported, parents separated from their children repeatedly in the last century in the name of an illusory security without apology. New horrors keep arising from old impulses. The past keeps bleeding into the present. No civilization in the world is exempt, but what is particular to America is that many who suffered enormous loss and destruction have had to do so alone, had to marshal language to tell the story only to find that there was no one to hear it because their suffering contradicts the story that the nation keeps telling itself. The story of American exceptionalism. America is a beacon of light, the singular enforcer of truth. Our story of exceptionalism doesn't allow us to confront our past with open eyes. A nation that cannot see its own past cannot see the suffering it has caused, suffering that persists into the present. A nation that cannot see our suffering cannot grieve with us. A nation that cannot grieve with us cannot know us, and therefore cannot love us. What does it look like for a nation to grieve together? These are some of the questions that I'm holding, and I send love out with these words.